Hi, I'm Judge Maybelline from Justice with Judge Maybelline, and you're back with another segment of Wow, Women of Wisdom. We're going to give it to you straight.
Hi, I'm Constance, and yes, you are back with Women of Wisdom, and we're going to give it to you straight with no chaser.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Braxton from the Braxton Family Value. And hey, we are here to answer your question and give you some answers.
Hi, I'm Beverly Haqq, and want to know through all of the things you're going to hear today that you're blessed and that we will be here for you, and maybe we'll be some help to you.
Maybe, no maybes about it. We're going to be of some help to you because that's what women of wisdom do. We share our wisdom with others, as the Bible said, let the old teach the young. But so we're going to teach you. We're not old now. We're women of wisdom. Don't get it twisted. Women of wisdom. That means we've lived a little longer than some of you, and we've learned a few things that you haven't learned yet, and we've gone through a few experiences that you haven't gone through yet. Speaking of which, one is fathers. Father's Day is approaching, and so often people ignore fathers in our lives, and we just have so many negative things about men. We've been talking about betrayal by men and what you do following the betrayal. Let's talk some good stuff about dads. Let's talk about fatherhood and how wonderful it is and what it's like to have a father in your life, or maybe what it's like if you didn't have a father in your life. Now, you had a father, okay? Remember, everybody had one. Whether he participated and whether he accepted his role and did everything that he was supposed to do is a different story. But what about fathers? What's been your experience? How we talk about that?
Oh, we're going to start with me?
No, we can start with either
I
one
have
of
a
you.
lot to say about fathers, but why don't we go down at the end first?
All right, Beverly.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, my own experience for my father. My father was in the home. He was very involved, very hardworking man, a very hardworking man. And he was the kind of father that you knew he loved you, he hugged you, he did all that, but some things he just bowed out. He just said, go to your mother. As the saying goes, go to your mother, ask your mother, which wasn't a bad thing. I saw it as a good thing because I see they were on the same page in a lot of areas. So that, I didn't understand that then, but I understood that later. So my experience with fathers, I've always felt my father was a good father. I've experienced other good fathers, and that's something we don't, like Judge Beverly was just saying, we don't talk about them. I've had friends that have raised their children, a lot single fathers, and have done everything that they knew to do. And sometimes I would be that auntie that would come and give them advice if they're daughters, if they had a daughter. So for fathers, I think for the most part, they're such an important part of our lives. And, we hear too much of it not existing or not, fathers communicating or being a part of a child's life. But there are a lot of good fathers out there, and I think we should acknowledge them. It's an important part. Lots of good fathers.
I like what you said when you said your father hugged you. There's been a myth that black fathers don't hug their children. You mean your father literally a man of his era and born probably in the 20s or 30s, and having experienced all the negative that was inflicted upon our black men, your father was able to hug.
Hugger. He
That's
would
good.
hug. Came from a
Yeah,
family of
that's good.
huggers, and he was a hugger.
That's good. I never got a hug
he's a
from
hugger.
mine, but that's another story. Haqq.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I had the greatest dad that ever walked God's earth.
Really?
He was a pastor, a Baptist pastor. He was strict, very strict. But Dad was just on time. He gave us a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and the sayings that I have that I say a lot. I got it from my dad.
Oh, really?
Like if somebody was trying to take advantage of you, he would say things like, "Well, they can't ride your back if you don't bend over." See, he had so much wisdom.
Right.
But I understood, and my sisters and my brothers understood what he was saying. My dad was a great family man. He was a great breadwinner. I don't know anything about this new generation and people saying, well, my dad's not here. My dad's not doing this. My dad's not doing that.
Right.
Yes, my dad was engaged in a lot of his parishioners.
Right.
But he found time for us.
That's good. Now that's
found
a big
time for us.
That's a big statement
That
there
is
because
big.
most preachers and most PKs, preachers' kids, they have such negative images of their fathers because they say the father spent so many time taking care of the members' problems that they didn't have any time for them.
And absolutely, he did that. He spent a lot of time with his members. However, we would travel with my dad because we were the singing choir.
Oh, how many?
Oh,
It was 4 of us,
Okay.
okay.
my sisters and I.
So you've been singing a long time.
all my life,
Oh.
all my life.
Hit a note, girl. Hit a note.
Not right now, girl.
You
We don't
can't
talk
sing.
about my daddy right now. Let me talk about my daddy, please. we don't get a lot of time to talk about your daddy.
That's true.
You
That's
know what I
true.
mean?
That's
But
true.
they're good fathers out here.
Very good.
Yes, there
You
are.
know, but we paint a negative vibe about the men, and that's wrong.
It's wrong.
That's wrong. Because they are good fathers. And you
Plenty.
know what, Judge? I thank God for the organization that you have, that you support these men, you know, and you are always encouraging them
I'm trying to spotlight
and,
them.
and empowering them.
There you go. Right.
I think it's a wonderful thing because sometimes women can be, no offense, women, but you know who
Yes.
you are.
You're the worst
Hello. You know, you always say negative things about these men. You're saying negative things to the children, and the children looking at their dad in a negative way, like, oh, my dad is no good. I don't want to be like my daddy. Blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. Stop already. Stop.
Exactly.
Tell them about how good their daddy is. Okay, so some of them are in jail.
Right.
You know some of them in jail, but some of them are in jail not because of what they did, but sometimes what they didn't do.
That's true.
It just happened that the police caught them. They wasn't guilty,
Right.
but they were deemed as being guilty and went to jail.
You know,
So encourage your children. I'm sorry. I get
Speaking of
very
that,
emotional
I hate
about
to,
it.
but no, I do. I want to butt in on this one because my Father's Day event, I do an event every year called Honoring Unsung Fathers. It's a Father's Day brunch where we honor the men in our community, and they're nominated from the wives, the children, colleagues, etc. And it's held on Father's Day. It's a big brunch, so we're doing it for 17 years. And this year, you just brought up a nice thing, whether he's in jail or not. We have a father whose daughter nominated him, and he was in prison for 36 years, 37 years in Louisiana, falsely imprisoned. And he's been released, and it's documented through court that he was falsely imprisoned for rape, and he was not the rapist. But he served 37 years. He left California to go on a vacation in Louisiana to visit family and ended up being arrested. And now, though, you know what she said?
What?
Even though he was in jail, she's 36 years old. She said, my father never missed a birthday. He never missed sending me a holiday card. He called me on the phone as often as he could, which was usually at least weekly.
Right.
We went to visit him. My mother took us to visit him. I know my father and have known my father all my life. And the day the court released him, she was right there
See?
to bring him back to California to live with her because the mother and father never married. But it was a testament to the mother
Yes.
who took her child to see her
Now.
father because he went to prison when her mother was pregnant with her.
Lord God.
So, and it was wrongful conviction.
See.
But she's saying he
Happens too
still was a
often.
great father. That's not the story. My father was a great father, but I'll get to me later. in
Yeah,
this.
get to her later.
Okay.
Look at
I'm gonna
God,
defer
though.
to Constance now. But
Go ahead, Constance, your turn. You better hurry up, girl, 'cause I'm not done.
I
you know
love,
what?
love.
And look, cause you know what?
What?
We don't want to overtalk her and not give her chance to talk.
Well, she better talk louder.
Well, you better. Can you move out the way?
I'll try. It's hard, but go ahead.
I was talking to her.
I know don't look good sitting back like
I
that.
wasn't talking to you.
Oh,
My goodness, no, stay put, stay right there. Yeah, so anyway, this happens to be one of my most favorite subjects in the whole wide world when we talk about fathers, because that's how much I really, 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 really love my father. My father passed away in 1985, and my father raised myself and my brother as a single dad, and that's the best thing he ever did. My family, my
God,
friends
look
right
at
now, they always say you had a good father, and he really, really was a good father. But you know, it's that dichotomy that it wasn't all good and it wasn't all bad. My father was a street man. He knew the streets. He was a number runner. He had a job. You know, his trade was he went to John Robert Powers. It was a mechanical, but he had bronchitis, so he could never do his trade. So he wasn't very educated. He was one of 17, 14 survived.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, but he had that family thing.
See.
But he was a good father, but I wouldn't say necessarily without judging, a good husband. But he was right on point with his children.
So he was married to your mother?
He was married to my mother, and, you know, that's a whole long story. And, you know, he
But
was
you say he raised you as a single father?
as a single father because my mother passed away when I was 10.
Oh, okay.
And so I had just turned 10, so I was getting ready to go into puberty, and my brother was 3 years younger than I, the cutie little teddy bear type, charming. Everybody, oh, we'll take the boy, everybody. We'll take the boy. And my father said, no, I'm raising my two children together.
That's
and,
for
and
him.
that's
That's-
exactly
that's
what he
the
did.
father.
Great.
Yeah,
That's
he
a
only
father.
read until the
Father.
third grade. He was very, very bright, very sharp, very, very charming. A real comedian. It was funny in our house. We just laughed all the time because we had to hide the pain from the loss because my mother passed away 2 months after my sister.
Wow.
So we had a lot of pain.
Yeah.
My father wasn't a very emotional man that like would pick you up and hug you and kiss you and that. But when we were younger, he did. But as you get older, and then there's like an unspoken line, you know. And so but I got my hugs in because I hugged him.
Absolutely.
And he could be on the street no matter what he was doing. He saw us coming. He was known for a big grin. His face went like. There was his children coming, you know.
Yeah.
And he took really, really good care of us.
And that was unusual.
Very
in
unusual. And he was a chef. He
your
could cook.
time.
He was a chef.
So he did all the cook. And another thing, he was a very, I wouldn't say a religious man. He loved to shop, get sharply dressed. He was Dapper Dan, hats. Those were the days when you put the rain boots over your shoes.
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
Big umbrella. He was like Dapper. And
New
his
York,
brother-
right?
New York. New York. We had to name it twice. New York. Hey, any New York in the house. New York.
New York in the house.
You know you got it going on. Not that the rest of the states don't get me wrong. I'm talking about New York right now. Yeah, so anyway, he just he was everything. Everything to me. You know, he had a lot of wisdom, a lot of advice, but he would say it so easy. He was my friends would come to my house. It was the house. He was like everybody's big brother. But see, he didn't even just take on that position when my mother passed away. He always had that position. When we were little kids, he would dance with us, you know, come in and do the hustle. I learned how to do the two-step probably when I was like 4 or 5 years old. He put the paper bag and cut out the holes, you know, because we didn't have a whole lot of money, you know.
Right.
So we knew how to entertain,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
color up the paper bag and all kinds of stuff, you know. And then what I was going to say with the religious part, the spiritual part, he was very, very spiritual. He was of Baptist persuasion, Baptist AME. But he would
Baptist
get
AME?
some of the family decided AME.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
so they went, whoever did that, and it's
Right.
like that. 17, 14 children. You know, one even was kind of
Yeah,
a mixture. A mixture.
Right.
So what he would do is, when he felt like getting dressed, he went to church. If he didn't feel like it, he didn't. But I tell you one thing, he was always on his knees praying. Always. And I think we're walking in those prayers right now. So, you know, I would say, you know, pray. Pray. You know.
But you know, you said something, Constance. You said that your dad was a good father, but not necessarily a good husband. And sometimes that happens.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's what I can say about my children's father, who happened to have be my ex-husband. He was indeed a good father. Now he and my daughters have a great relationship, and he spent more time with the children than I. He was more patient. He liked playing games. He'd play the board games with them. He'd play Scrabble. He'd play Monopoly. He'd play, Jeopardy and all of that. And I have never been into too much game playing. I can do it a little bit, but I get bored real quickly. But he was always patient with them like that, and he liked to cook. I never liked to cook. I cooked because I had to cook because that was my responsibility as a mother. But he enjoyed cooking, so his cooking was better, and they enjoyed his cooking better. And all the family members loved to come to Uncle Cash's house and have him entertain them and that kind of stuff. But my dad, when I was younger, I didn't like the man at all. I thought he was the most evil man. And because he was so strict and he had all these rules. We had so many rules. That's why, we had so many rules till I decided when I have my children, rules going out the window. And his favorite saying, there's a place for everything and everything has its place.
Yeah.
So you couldn't leave anything out of place.
No.
When you finished eating, you had to wash the dishes right away, clean the stove, sweep the kitchen, mop the floor. When he'd come into your bedroom and do inspection in your drawers, your clothes had to be folded in a certain manner, had to be in the drawer like that. The dishes had to go in the cabinet in a certain way. He just had these rules. He ate out the same plate all the time, the same glass, the same cup for his coffee. And he was just so rigid. And to this day, my daddy, I do not have one memory of my daddy hugging me or kissing me. But let me tell you the memory I do have.
All right now.
My daddy protected me. And my
Yes.
daddy loved me. And my father would not allow anyone to disrespect his children and to touch his girls. That's what so many girls are missing today is that protection of a man. And that's why they're getting beat up, domestic violence, turning to stuff. My father's rule, that was we went to school during the time teachers could whip you.
Oh, yeah.
And they could spank you. But my father's rule to every man, don't you ever put your hands on my child, my girls. The male teachers would have to defer if they thought we needed to be spanking. They'd have to give that paddle to a female teacher. But no man,
Absolutely.
brothers, uncles, teachers, preacher, nobody else could put their hands on my father.
Absolutely.
And my father was indeed a provider. Unfortunately, he worked for the meat packing company, and unfortunately, he had a stroke at age 53, left him totally paralyzed, and he could no longer provide for his family as a worker. This embarrassed me because when he was finally able to get up and walk and recover from the stroke, he walked with dragging his leg, and one arm remained bent. He could not go out to hold a job. But my father did recycling before recycling became popular. My father collected all the newspapers in the community from people. He would go through the trash cans that sat outside at the street. I'm in high school. My daddy going through trash cans every morning, picking up the bottles, the cans, and the newspaper. And my friends are walking past our house, and in the same neighborhood as my father's digging in trash cans. I was so embarrassed. I was embarrassed until I got older and realized my father said, I can't go to a job, but it's my job to provide for my family, and I'm going to provide in the manner that I can. He got those cans and those bottles and those newspapers.
Yes.
Pretty soon, everybody in the community were taking their cans and bottles and papers and not putting them in the trash can. They were keeping them for Mr. Ephriam.
I love it.
And then there was a man down the street 2 doors over who would drive my daddy to wherever they recycled that stuff so he could get the money. This was in the 60s when recycling was not required.
That's right.
There was no environmental doing any of that. But my daddy was recycling to do what he could to give my mother money to buy food, to pay the rent, to buy her shoes and clothing, and to make his contribution to his household. So when I hear men have excuses for not working,
There's enough.
you know I don't live with that.
Right.
No, you don't
not
go
at
anywhere
all.
with me.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what it was with my dad, he was a workaholic though. He had a small business, but he's a workaholic, and his whole, he providing was very important to him, and just the general teaching my brothers respect for women. That was a major for him.
Major.
And he would say, I don't
Very
care
major.
what happens. I don't care what she does or whatever your situation is. Walk away is what he would say.
But don't you
Walk
ever put your
away.
hands.
But don't you raise your hand to a woman.
That's right.
That's right.
And I probably needed spankings, but back then my dad didn't even allow anyone to spank me.
Really? Not
I
even
never-
your mother?
No.
My
No,
dad was
no
the
one can
same
hit
way.
me.
Nobody. And
explains.
he didn't,
And
my
my
father didn't
brothers
spank
couldn't even
us.
raise their voices at me.
Your fathers didn't know anything about Dr. Spock. What you
But
talking about?
he-
They didn't spank
he
you.
didn't. My
No,
father
my
did
daddy
not.
know
My
about
father
Dr.
was not a
My
spanker.
daddy didn't either. My mother told my
Now, the mother
mother.
would, but
told-
my mother did, but my father,
knew.
no. He could talk to us. He had a way of like, just his voice. He always talked to us so even key, like, you need to get your education. It wasn't like, you better go to school, da, da, da. It was like, just easy going. So, no, and he didn't believe in spankings. Matter of fact, when my mother passed away, one of our aunts came and stayed with us, and she wanted to raise us the way she wanted to raise us.
Right.
Which was involved spanking, and he would not allow it. Well, she had a man, and she moved to Texas. And that's when he really took on the role. And he never had to raise his hand to me or my brother.
I don't believe it. He
Well-
just didn't raise his hand to you because I know you were a little hoot.
Oh yeah, I was a piece of work. I was, but I had to learn.
I
the
know
hard
she was
way.
a piece
You
of work.
skated, huh?
Yeah.
You know she was a
That's
piece
the
You
work.
skated.
Yeah,
You got away with that.
I was a piece
You
of
got
work.
away.
Sometimes
see,
I
my
probably
whole
deserved it. But no, for real. For real.
Bragging,
I
my
get it.
daddy never whipped me.
I know I worked his
And
nerves.
your
I told
daddy
you he
shoulda
was on his
whipped you
knees
too.
praying.
I know, that's what they say. He should have just beat my
It's interesting that we are having this conversation because we get to know people, but you don't get to know everything.
Right.
So now that explains your little spoiled brattiness.
Who?
You two.
Who?
You and you.
Oh,
You
me.
talking
I've
about
heard
Bev
that
and
before.
Constance?
Yeah.
What?
And you two.
No, you gonna talk about me?
Oh,
Now
she
she
included
had-
everybody.
See, I had to go back.
never hit me either.
Everybody.
Okay, you wanna roll like that?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. Well, my daddy whipped my tail. Now that's the one thing. Look, he let any other man hit me, but he hit me.
Right.
Not too often though, because
Yeah.
I've always been a woman of logic. And I couldn't
too.
And that's why we all
that's why
have
we
things in
vibe.
common.
Yeah.
And it just I'm number 9 or 10, right? 9 lived. My mother gave birth to 10, so I grew up with 9. And it just didn't make sense to me. If Daddy said, when you finish eating, it's your turn to wash the dishes, get the dishes off the table, go wash them, dry them, put them away, clean the stove, clean it up. He you know the rule, right? Why you gotta get whipped? It just doesn't make sense. Just do what you're supposed to do. You don't get a whipping.
Right,
Look what
right.
you learned from it.
That's what I'm telling you. I
Absolutely.
learned.
You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying?
I learned
it.
discipline.
You go by the rules.
I
too.
do. I do.
Yes,
Most of the
you
time.
do.
And remember, probably when you were getting those whippings, when you were getting
Most
those
of
whippings.
all the time that
No,
I know of.
I know I didn't get too many whippings. Is what I'm saying. Is because I knew that it just logically, if I do X, the consequence is Y. So why do X? Why walk out of the house at 10 o'clock at night when you know you're not supposed to? Because you know if you do, you're going to get your tail whipped. So that didn't make no sense to me. But my brothers.
But that's what you believe now.
That's right.
But don't tell anybody. But that's you.
That's me.
You
Right.
didn't know?
Yeah, I
Right.
did.
Ask me. I'll
Yeah.
tell you.
And the brothers, they got it because they got the lesson in another way. Because probably why they were getting the whipping is, and I'm beating you for your own good, and you're gonna learn, and now you got it, and blah 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 blah.
Right.
This is hurting me more than it's hurting you.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how they got
Right.
their lesson.
See?
Right.
But they
see,
didn't get it because they had to keep getting beat for the
That
same
was
thing
my
over and
brother.
over.
But now they grown, they don't have to get no more beating.
Yeah, but my brother was that way. See, I saw him get his butt beat. In school, the paddles were that thick. Catholic school, nuns, they beat your butt. I said, oh, no, they'll never have to hit me.
That's right.
And my father told me, you're just smart. That's right. You're smart. I was like, oh, no, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
So I was the goody goody two
That's me.
like this is because I did.
Yeah, I was goody goody too.
Smart kid and well behaved kid, all of that because I did not want to get
For the
hit.
most part, I was too.
I didn't
People
want
don't believe it, but I
Yeah.
was.
From all 4 of us.
Yes.
Oh, you were well behaved too.
What?
Yeah.
I was the best. You hear me?
I
Like
believe
I
you.
am now.
Yes.
How about that?
Well, okay.
And
Let me
you
take
know,
a
it's
drink
something
on
to
that.
that. The logic and the good sense and learning how to obey and following rules. Because I don't know about you, but in my family, I am the only one who finished college and then graduate school. And a lot of it was because I followed rules.
Absolutely.
And I thought logically. And I didn't talk back.
No.
Hear me,
Do that.
believe it or not, audience, I didn't talk back to teachers. Believe it or not. I know you find that hard to believe. But if you had my daddy
Not doing her era.
named
She
Robert
couldn't.
T., you wouldn't talk back to teachers either. Now, he didn't play that. He didn't allow them to whip you, the men, but he didn't allow you to disrespect your teachers, to disrespect your elders, to disrespect anybody older than you. And it just didn't make sense to me, to talk bad to the neighbor who's, my elder and know they're going to tell my father. And the result is I'm going to get my tail whipped. Come on, children, think. People get mad at the parents for whipping them. But let me say to the children, it's your fault because you know what's going to happen.
Right.
But you keep doing it. So it says, I choose to do the wrong and I accept the consequences of it.
Yes.
And during that time, it took a village. It was the village
Definitely.
that raised the children.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
When the parents was not around, and they could actually spank you.
Amen.
And then you come home and get spanked
other,
again.
yeah,
Because a neighbor told on you.
absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
So you knew that you were going to have respect
Respect.
for these
Right.
older people, but not now.
Right.
The other thing I liked about my father was that he respected, when you talk about respect, he respected my mother, and my mother respected him. And the children could not divide and conquer
Yes.
the household.
Right.
We couldn't go to mom and say, Mama, can I go spend the night in my friend's house? Now, you know your daddy's rules. You don't spend the night at friends' houses. So go ask your father. And my father is, you know my rules, so don't come asking me anything that means that I have to defy my rule, because you already know the answer. So don't even come ask me that question. So we say, Mama, no need to ask him. You know what he's going to say. And then she say, my point exactly.
Right. Right. And some fathers, they are a little insecure that they think they're not giving enough. Children, all they want is some time, a little quality time. You can go and take them and buy an ice cream cone.
Yes.
Like a lot of times people are spoiling their children with all these designer this and designer this and thousands of dollars of that, and thousands of dollars for cribs and this and carriages and you name it, and clothes and clothing that they're going to dispose of or give away or pass down or whatever. But just to just take time, and to sing with them and be creative in a spiritual
with
type of
them,
way.
right.
And you know what I'm saying? Not just that outward material world. You internalize it. Just sit and take them by the water. I used to take Lana and throw bread for the birds and stuff.
That's right.
Simple little things.
Yeah.
Quality
Just in
time.
the simplicity
Quality
of things,
time.
simplicity of life, quality time. Not so much quantity. If you just took an hour, sometimes they say, "Oh, I'm busy, I'm working, I have 2 jobs," and just find some time. That kid doesn't. Time is spaceless for them. There's
sure
just,
is.
when they say, "My daddy used to come and take me." Or took me, maybe he just come, maybe he lived in the house. Well, my daddy would just take me to the baseball game. It could have been maybe 3 games in his whole life.
Right, but you remember,
They
though.
remember.
Remember that.
Like I remember the sack. I learned sack races, the egg toss, bobbing for apples, all of those games at my daddy's company picnic. Because that was the one outing every year was daddy's company picnic. So those memories live with you.
Absolutely, and I think it's a wonderful thing that we're talking about the fathers and you honoring the fathers.
Father's Day.
Thank you.
Get your tickets and come on out. You don't come this year, come next year. Father's Day. Mark your calendars.
Absolutely.
Tribute to fathers.
Tribute to
Yay.
fathers.
Let's just
Yes,
cheers
fathers.
to all the fathers
To the
in the world.
fathers and the
Here.
dads.
Yes, to all the fathers in the world.
Daddy Day.
Happy Father's
Happy
Day.
Father's
Father's Day.
We love you.
We love you.
Love you and
And I love you,
appreciate
Daddy.
you.
R.I.P.